Welcome to our deep dive today. We're diving into a fascinating area that you're interested in exploring, the intersection of quantum physics and spirituality.
Two fields that seem like they're worlds apart.
Yeah, on the surface.
Yeah, but they reveal intriguing connections.
Upon closer examination. So we'll explore those connections, drawing on insights from both scientific and philosophical perspectives.
It's really fascinating how these two domains, one focused on the universe's tiniest building blocks,
Right.
and the other on the vastness of existence and meaning, converge in ways that really challenge our conventional understanding of reality.
Exactly. And quantum physics, which emerged in the early 20th century, revolutionized our understanding of the universe.
Yeah.
At its most fundamental level, it offered explanations for phenomena that classical physics just couldn't account for.
Yeah. Classical physics, the physics of our everyday experience, breaks down at the atomic and subatomic levels.
Right.
Quantum physics provides a new framework for understanding how matter and energy behave at these incredibly small scales.
And it introduces some really mind-boggling concepts, like wave-particle duality, the idea that something can be both a wave spread out over space and a particle, localized in a specific point.
It's difficult to grasp intuitively.
It is. Really challenges our everyday experience.
Yeah. Well, we typically think of things as being either one or the other.
Right.
But in the quantum realm, particles like electrons can exhibit both wave-like and particle-like behavior, depending on how they are observed.
So it's not just that we don't know whether something's a wave or a particle, it's that it could be both simultaneously.
Yes.
And then there's superposition. This principle suggests that a quantum particle can exist in multiple states at once, until it's measured, at which point it collapses into a single state.
The famous thought experiment
Yeah.
of Schrödinger's cat illustrates this concept.
Yeah.
The cat in the box is imagined to be in a superposition of states, both alive and dead, until we open the box and observe it.
It's as if the act of observation somehow forces the particle, or the cat in this analogy, to choose a definite state.
That's one way to think about it.
Yeah.
The role of the observer in quantum mechanics is a source of much debate and interpretation. It challenges the classical view of an objective reality that exists independently of the observer. It suggests that consciousness might play a role in shaping the outcome of quantum events.
And then we have entanglement, perhaps the most mind-bending concept of all. Two particles become linked, no matter how far apart they are, so that measuring the state of one instantly determines the state of the other.
Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance because it seems to imply communication faster than the speed of light, which violates our understanding of causality.
Right. It suggests a level of interconnectedness that just defies our classical intuitions about space and time.
Precisely. Entanglement challenges the idea that objects are separate and independent entities, pointing toward a more holistic view of reality, where everything is interconnected.
And let's not forget the uncertainty principle, which states that we can never know both the position and momentum of a particle with perfect accuracy. The more precisely we know one, the less we can know about the other.
This principle isn't a limitation of our measuring tools, but a fundamental property of nature.
Yeah.
It implies that there is an inherent fuzziness or uncertainty at the heart of reality.
So instead of a deterministic, clockwork universe,
Right.
we have a universe where probability and uncertainty reign. It's a paradigm shift that has profound implications for how we understand the nature of reality.
And it's these very concepts that spark fascinating connections with spiritual thought.
Yeah.
Many spiritual traditions have long emphasized interconnectedness, the role of consciousness, and the limitations of our ordinary perception, themes that resonate with certain interpretations of quantum physics.
It's almost as if modern science is catching up with ancient wisdom in some respects.
Perhaps. What's intriguing is that while science seeks to understand the universe through objective observation and experimentation, spirituality explores the realm of meaning, purpose, and our subjective experience of existence.
And yet, they seem to be converging on some fundamental truths about the nature of reality.
Indeed.
So let's explore some of the core principles that we find across diverse spiritual traditions and see how they connect with the insights of quantum physics. One recurring theme in spirituality is the concept of interconnectedness. This idea is central to many Eastern philosophies, where the universe is seen as an interconnected web, where everything is ultimately linked.
Take the concept of Brahman in Hinduism, which suggests a single universal consciousness underlying all individual selves, or Pratityasamutpada in Buddhism, where nothing exists in isolation, and everything arises in relation to everything else.
These concepts resonate with the idea of entanglement in quantum physics, suggesting that separateness is an illusion, and at a deeper level we're all part of a unified whole.
And we see similar ideas reflected in indigenous spiritualities, where humans are often viewed as part of a larger web of life, interconnected with nature and the cosmos. This holistic perspective aligns with the interconnectedness that quantum entanglement suggests.
Another key principle in spirituality is the idea of consciousness as fundamental. Many traditions, particularly in the East, view consciousness as a primary aspect of reality, not simply a product of the brain.
In Advaita Vedanta, consciousness is considered the only true reality, and the material world is seen as an illusion. Buddhist teachings emphasize that our perceptions shape our experience of reality, highlighting the active role of consciousness.
This resonates with the observer effect in quantum physics, where the active observation seems to influence the behavior of particles, suggesting that consciousness might play a more fundamental role in the universe than previously thought.
It's a thought-provoking idea that challenges the materialist worldview, which sees consciousness as arising from matter. Instead, it proposes that consciousness might be the ground of being, from which matter emerges.
These connections between quantum physics and spirituality are certainly compelling.
They are. But it's important to approach these ideas with both enthusiasm and a healthy dose of skepticism,
Right.
recognizing the limitations of both scientific and spiritual perspectives.
Absolutely. We'll delve into those considerations later in our deep dive. But first, let's explore some specific parallels between quantum principles and spiritual insights.
Let's start with the observer effect, one of the most intriguing aspects of quantum mechanics.
It's the idea that the act of observing a quantum system can actually influence its behavior,
Exactly.
which seems to challenge our common sense notion of an objective reality that exists independently of us.
In classical physics, we assume that we can observe the world without disturbing it. But in the quantum realm, the act of observation becomes entangled with the system being observed.
Yeah. The classic example is the double-slit experiment. When electrons pass through two slits, without being observed, they create an interference pattern, as if they are waves. But when we try to measure which slit each electron goes through, the interference pattern disappears, and they behave like particles.
It's as if the electrons know they're being watched and change their behavior accordingly.
Yeah.
This suggests that consciousness, or at least the act of observation, is somehow implicated in the collapse of the wave function, the mathematical description of a quantum system's state.
This resonates with spiritual teachings that emphasize the role of consciousness in shaping reality. For example, Buddhist teachings on dependent origination suggest that our perceptions and intentions influence the world around us.
Yes. And in Advaita Vedanta, the material world is seen as an appearance within consciousness,
Right.
suggesting that the observer and the observed are ultimately not separate. This aligns with the idea that consciousness might play a fundamental role in quantum mechanics.
Another compelling parallel is between quantum entanglement and the concept of interconnectedness, which is a central theme in many spiritual traditions.
Entanglement suggests that two particles, once entangled, remain connected no matter how far apart they are. Measuring the state of one instantly determines the state of the other, as if they are communicating faster than the speed of light.
It challenges our classical understanding of space and time as fundamental barriers to interaction.
Indeed, it suggests a deeper level of interconnectedness that transcends our ordinary perception of separation. This resonates with spiritual teachings that emphasize the unity of all things.
Like in Hinduism, for example, the concept of Brahman suggests a single universal consciousness that permeates everything. And in Buddhism, the idea of pratityasamutpada emphasizes that all phenomena arise in dependence upon one another.
These concepts point towards a holistic view of reality, where everything is interconnected, a view that aligns with the implications of quantum entanglement.
Let's move on to another interesting parallel. The principle of superposition and the concept of non-duality in spiritual traditions.
Superposition,
Yeah.
as we've discussed, is the idea that a quantum particle can exist in multiple states simultaneously until it's measured. This challenges our binary thinking, the tendency to see things as either one thing or the other.
Right. It suggests that reality at the quantum level is more fluid and less defined than our everyday experience might lead us to believe.
And this connects with the concept of non-duality, which is found in various spiritual traditions, particularly in Advaita Vedanta and Zen Buddhism.
Right.
Non-duality emphasizes that ultimate reality lies beyond the dualistic distinctions that we make, such as self and other subject and object.
So instead of seeing the world as composed of separate, independent entities, non-duality points towards a fundamental unity, where all distinctions dissolve.
Precisely. It's a perspective that resonates with the idea of superposition, where multiple possibilities coexist, until the act of observation collapses the wave function into a single state.
Finally, let's consider the quantum vacuum and its connection to the concept of emptiness in spiritual traditions.
The quantum vacuum, despite its name, is not empty space.
Right.
It's a seething sea of potential energy and virtual particles constantly popping in and out of existence. It's a realm of infinite possibility.
And this connects with the Buddhist concept of shunyata, often translated as emptiness.
Yes. But emptiness in Buddhism doesn't mean nothingness. It refers to the absence of inherent existence, the idea that all things are interdependent and arise from a web of causes and conditions.
So rather than a void, emptiness is seen as a ground of infinite potential from which all phenomena arise. This aligns with the quantum vacuum, which is teeming with potential energy, and the possibility for the emergence of particles.
These parallels between quantum physics and spirituality are certainly thought-provoking. They invite us to reconsider our understanding of reality and to explore the connections between the scientific and the spiritual.
But as we mentioned earlier, it's crucial to approach these connections with both wonder and critical thinking. There are potential pitfalls to avoid.
Absolutely. One concern is the danger of oversimplifying complex scientific concepts to fit metaphysical frameworks, sometimes called quantum mysticism.
Right. We need to be cautious about drawing hasty conclusions or forcing scientific concepts into pre-existing spiritual beliefs.
Another challenge is the difficulty of empirical validation. When it comes to subjective spiritual experiences, science relies on objective measurements and reproducibility, while spiritual experiences are often deeply personal and not easily quantifiable.
So while we can explore intriguing connections between these domains, we need to be mindful of their distinct methodologies and limitations.
It's also important to avoid reductionism, whether it's reducing spiritual experiences to mere brain activity or trying to explain all scientific phenomena through spiritual frameworks. Both approaches can oversimplify the complexities of each domain. Science and spirituality offer distinct ways of knowing, and we can learn from both without trying to collapse one into the other.
And finally, it's important to be sensitive to cultural differences. Western scientific traditions and Eastern philosophies often have different assumptions and ways of approaching knowledge.
Bridging these perspectives requires humility and a willingness to learn from other cultures and worldviews.
By acknowledging these challenges and approaching these conversations with nuance and respect, we can engage in a more fruitful dialogue between science and spirituality.
It's a dialogue that has the potential to enrich our understanding of both ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
As we go a bit deeper, it's worth highlighting some prominent figures who've contributed to this dialogue between quantum physics and spirituality.
One notable figure is Fritjof Capra,
Right.
a physicist and systems theorist.
Yeah.
His book, The Tao of Physics, published in 1975, was one of the first works to draw these explicit parallels between quantum mechanics and Eastern mysticism.
His work helped popularize the idea that there are deep connections between these seemingly disparate fields.
Capra pointed out how quantum phenomena like wave-particle duality, superposition, and entanglement challenge that classical Newtonian view of a universe composed of separate, solid objects. He argued that these quantum principles resonate with the Eastern mystical view of reality as an interconnected and interdependent web of relationships.
So instead of seeing the universe as a machine, we should see it as dynamic and interconnected system.
More like a living organism.
Literally.
Yeah. Capra's work helped shift the paradigm for many people, opening them up to the possibility that modern science might be converging with ancient wisdom traditions.
Another influential figure is Amit Goswami, a theoretical quantum physicist who's written extensively on the intersection of science and spirituality.
Goswami is a proponent of monistic idealism, the idea that consciousness is the fundamental ground of existence. He argues that quantum mechanics provides evidence for the primacy of consciousness, pointing to the observer effect, as suggesting that consciousness might play a role in shaping reality at the quantum level.
So instead of consciousness arising from matter, as materialism suggests, He proposes that matter arises from consciousness.
Precisely. It's a radical shift in perspective that aligns with certain interpretations of Eastern spiritual traditions, like Advaita Vedanta.
And then there's David Bohm, a theoretical physicist, known for his work on the interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Bohm developed the concept of the implicate order, suggesting that reality has a hidden, enfolded order that underlies the explicate order we perceive with our senses. He used the analogy of a hologram, where each part contains information about the whole, suggesting that the universe might be structured in a similar way.
This resonates with spiritual teachings about unity, interconnectedness, and the idea that everything is ultimately part of a single, indivisible reality.
Yes. Bohm's work, along with that of Capra, Goswami, and others, has helped open up a dialogue between science and spirituality, suggesting that these two domains might not be as separate as we once thought.
It's been a truly mind-expanding exploration of the intersection of quantum physics and spirituality.
As we conclude our deep dive today, I would encourage you to continue exploring these connections with an open mind and a critical eye. There's still much to discover and contemplate.
Remember that while these parallels are fascinating, it's important to approach them with both wonder and discernment, recognizing the limitations of both scientific and spiritual perspectives.
The journey of understanding the universe and our place within it is an ongoing one. Quantum physics and spirituality offer unique and potentially complementary ways of exploring the mysteries of existence.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the profound connections between quantum physics and spirituality. We hope it has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to continue exploring these fascinating ideas.